Whiskey.
To see you, man. Long time no see, pal.
Yo, long time no see, brother. You growing your hair out? There's no more
Yeah,
pink.
dude. So this is pretty much the last time I got it cut was when I cut the last of the pink out. It's in a hat at work, so it's
Okay,
just kind of going wild. Uh,
I love it.
Maybe the pink will come
Okay,
back. Probably not. Probably never again. But we'll see.
maybe, maybe not. But Brett, thank you so much for joining another episode of Sipping with Sakari. Are you sipping on anything?
So I'm all set up here. I didn't know what you wanted to do. I've got everything ready to go. I'm just gonna pour myself a tea. Um,
You're doing a
I'm doing
tea.
a
Okay,
tea,
what's the
dude.
tea? What's the tea? Talk to us about it.
So this is actually um, okay. So this is just a like extremely dark roasted oolong tea that's been infused
Okay,
with charcoal in the process of drying the leaves. I'm
okay.
not too familiar with it.
What's oolong?
Oolong tea. So break up all the types of tea. I've been really big into tea. I just started a coffee shop job, so like the world of tea
Let's
has just
go.
kind of like crashed over me the last week or so. But so all tea comes from the same plant. You've got green tea, white tea, oolong tea, black tea, and then you have herbal teas and fermented teas. The fermented teas you can do with any of the other kinds of tea. And an oolong tea, most of the classification is just based on like the oxidation of the leaves. So an oolong tea is
Okay,
like the broadest range. It's anything that's more oxidized than like a white or a yellow tea, but less
yeah.
oxidized than a black tea. So it's like 10%, more than 10% oxidation to less than 90% kind of falls in that oolong category.
So if a regular person wanted to get some tea and they were like, I'm gonna try the oolong
Mhm.
tea, in a brief description, what would you say? Is it robust? Is it smoky? Like what is it for us?
Well, so I mean, with it being such a broad range, you can get even within oolong teas, they can be all very different. But
Okay.
they are some of the like more exciting teas to the palate. Like if you are kind of
Got
like want
you.
to try something that's gonna like really have a lot of flavor, really strong flavor, and not be like as dark. I don't know. Some certain black teas for me like can just taste kind of flat. Oolong tea, you can
Got
get a
it.
lot of really crazy flavors from the really complex flavors. I just tried a milk oolong tea for the first time, and it has this like
Ooh.
really strong aroma of like brown butter. But I've also had other oolong teas
Ooh.
that were like way lighter and just I don't know. It's super exciting, and there's so much difference between even like I said, even different oolong teas. You get such a broad range of differences
I love it.
and variety. So I've been drinking as much tea as I can for like the last
I
three
love
weeks,
it, man.
man. The coffee shop, man,
It's
is like
good.
coffee and tea is now just like
It's your
it's like a
world.
whole
You
door
sound
to a new
passionate.
world has opened up for me. It's wild.
I love it, man. I don't know, man. All I'm drinking over here is a little lemon lime seltzer over here.
Heck
That's
yeah,
it.
dude.
No tea. This is like if I needed a Sprite, this is like a healthy version of a Sprite. Lemon lime seltzer. There it
I
is.
got you,
That's it
man.
for me.
Well, I'll definitely. I mean, we already talked a little bit when we were setting this up, but I'll definitely be sending some stuff your way for you to try, and I want to hear what you think because
I can't wait, brother.
hopefully what happens is the same thing that happened to me. You try, I'll try to send you just one of each type of tea with like a brief description, and
Yeah,
hopefully that opens up that world for you too because it's such a
I love it.
insane deep history to it. And you and I talked when we were in the competition about just the history of food culture and traditions and all that, and how much
Yeah.
that like is a draw for food to me. So the same thing
hmm
is true for the beverage side. And coffee has its own history of like it was cultivated or not cultivated, but it was just discovered and became a part of civilization so long ago. But tea
Love
is
it.
that and then some. Like throwing
Love it.
leaves into a pot and cooking it. Is something that people have been doing
Wait,
forever. So
we were in a competition together? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just
I
kidding. I'm
do
just kidding. Of
forget
course we
sometimes
were,
about it.
right? I'm just kidding. No, man, I love to hear the passion. For me, when we first connected during the show, for those that don't know, Brett here and I were both with Hell's Kitchen season 21. And, I feel like that's where we really started to connect on the food history, just the passion I heard in your voice. I remember that long car ride
Hmm. It
to,
was
I think it
the
was
yacht.
the
Oh, it
raceway
was
or
the
the yacht or one
raceway.
of
It
those.
was the race, I think.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm happy and honored to call you a friend and brother, and I'm so happy to have you on the show. For those that don't know, please introduce yourself, Brett. Where are you from? How old are you?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do?
So my name is Brett Benninger Schwartz. I'm 25 years old. I'm from basically the south side of Indianapolis, kind of like a small suburb on the south side of Indianapolis, and I kind of stayed there forever. I was fortunate, like at least until I was 18. Growing up, I was fortunate enough to have a ton of insanely talented and just creative mentors to kind of like escort me on my way while staying in this really small town. Like I just happened to find the right people. And that sent me on this whole journey of food. Ended up moving to Nashville, Tennessee shortly after I graduated high school. Got in at a few really great restaurants in town. First place I worked at was Husk, which was where a lot of that conversation that you and I had on that car ride came from. Was we were just talking about the history of Southern food and the influence of Black culture, and how much of that was taught to me at that restaurant was kind of like you know our first step of like finding becoming friends, like and really finding common ground of like okay, this guy, we have a mutual respect for the food history and the culture while being from very different journeys, obviously.
100%. For those
um
that Husk is a big deal. No, I mean like
oh, I mean,
people might just hear Husk and they're just like, okay, what's that? Talk to us a little bit about Husk.
yeah, so
Sean Brock.
Sean Brock, super talented chef, focusing in heirloom ingredients and Southern cuisine, but really focusing on Southern cuisine, not in the light of like, okay, fried chicken and collard greens. While we did that and they were delicious, it was like, what more is there? And you go all the way back to the cultivation and we were taught how to grow rice, how to grow beans, how to do so much cooking was taught
Incredible.
from slave trade. Like, and when people were brought here and what they were taught in those homes when they were cooking, so much technique. And I mean, you focused on it, have shown such a light on it. The same exact thing I'm talking about, where all of this food history was taught to us, and then however long later, it's just looked at like, okay, Southern food is collard greens, fried chicken, this and that. But there's so much more when it comes to vegetables, when it comes to grains, when it comes to different beans and things, or even just
100%.
a way of doing something, whether completely irrelevant of like all of the ingredients. It's just a technique or a way of
100%.
preserving something. And so there was so just I spent about the better part of like 3 years there, and
Wow.
learning those things, and started off as a line cook and made my way up to the point where when I left, I was a sous chef. And spending that time in that restaurant where we were growing all of our ingredients, we were either making everything from scratch or finding somebody nearby who did it with local ingredients. So we weren't just buying soy sauce, for example. There had to be somebody in the South that was making soy sauce, and
Wow.
and that went for
Love that.
everything, whether it was vinegar. Oh,
I
not sure
love
what
it.
happened there. Sorry about that.
No worry, you're good.
Um,
Um,
but yeah. So
Southern food for me, man, is like it's home, man. You know what I mean? And to see your love and appreciation for it is just it's always been really warming and refreshing. So you worked at Husk, and then from there, talk to us a little bit more.
yeah. So from there, I ended up going to you know my favorite restaurant in town from Husk. I was ready for a change of pace. At Husk, it's not a huge volume restaurant, but you're open 7 days a week. You're doing 200 plus covers a night, and it is just like, you're just getting beat up every day. And I felt like I was ready for that next step to a more fine dining environment. I wanted to be pushed creatively, and ended up getting in at my favorite restaurant in town, which is called Bastion, and it's a chef's tasting counter kind of in the back of this cool bar. A little speakeasy vibe, 24 seats, no servers, no bussers, nothing. It's just basically four chefs and the guests, 24 people at a time. We had
I love
a
it.
small cocktail bar, and that was such an eye-opening and insane experience for people that have been to the city. I've been lucky enough to eat there. It is a one of a kind experience. It's actually, I'm really trying to get us there. That's the spot I'm trying to get us at. If I can wrangle all us together one day,
Nice,
I want to
nice.
go
Yeah,
and eat there. But so that was just such an eye-opening experience to see, the really, fine dining side of food, the very technical, I'm working a full shift where we're not even open. I'm just prepping because of how extensive some of this prep is. I mean, we talked about it on the show, some of the silly things that maybe you had to prep for 11 Madison, or I had to
yeah.
prep at that spot. It's just one of those spots where things can get so out of hand because you're, you know, it's just one of those spots, man. Like it's such a juggling act of we want to get in the best ingredients, we want to do cool things to them, but we also want to stay out of their way, and we want to give the guests a great experience. And there's only four people, and it's just just one of those places where I will
Never
never
forget.
forget working there. It was such a cool experience to finally get in. Just eating there was one of my
Yeah.
favorite food experiences I've had, but getting to be on the other side of it, while it was short lived, my time there got cut pretty short because of the pandemic. That's where I was at
Yep.
pre-pandemic, and kind of had
What would
to.
you say? What would you say your biggest takeaway from Husk and from that restaurant? You're obviously doing these intricate things. You're learning all these things about Southern cuisine, right? You're growing and developing up as a chef. What do you think like your biggest takeaway was?
I think biggest takeaway from Husk for sure was to stay out of the way of the ingredient. I think that was like the most valuable lesson that I learned there as a chef was like the more you touch this, the more you mess with it, the more you move it around, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. While it may be small, at the end of the day, the more you mess with it, the worse it's going to get, you know? And that is such a great rule for me and that I have lived by since leaving that place is like I want to utilize all of this ingredient. I want to do something interesting with it, but I also want to not muddle it, not water it down. I want, it to come through as strong as it possibly can. And that was the coolest thing about Husk. I think that Bastion kind of taught me, I think I learned a lot more about how I want to be able to take care of the guests that come into the restaurant. That was so much more of an intimate
Got it.
experience, and it was so much more of a fulfilling experience serving in that restaurant, getting to, set the scene and like put on like it felt like a performance. It's four of you. There's we're playing music out of a record player. It's candle lit, and everything that is done for you is done by the four of us and the owner and the bartender. And so it's just such a cool thing, and having such an intimate experience and being able to like set the stage for people and really just
Right.
cater this really exciting experience while also giving the food. I think was like the coolest thing about that, and it definitely instilled something in me that I want to be able to cater specifically to people with whatever I do in the future. I want to be able to do something that's specifically catered to each person. If I can find out a small thing
Right.
about them or just any small thing, just
Hospitality.
be ready. Yeah, a different style of hospitality and like really pushing that hospitality side was one really cool thing.
Was it
Um,
was it was it an adjustment for you? Because for me, when I went from like when I was working at EMP and stuff, you're behind the kitchen, a lot of covers, push, push, push.
mhm.
But then when I was working for like a chef's table environment, way more intimate. And for me, it was a difficult thing to just have to be personable, be on all the time per se. Was that like a shift? Was that like a hard adjustment for you, or it was just natural?
I mean, I've always been a little bit of like a louder, more outgoing figure. But it was definitely an adjustment because it changed the way I looked at everything. Because in my whole career before that place, I had never interacted with the people I was serving. So like just
Got it.
being there and like just being there for on that side of it and seeing how it just flooded me with so many different thoughts about we should be doing this like this and like I just thought about things so much differently from that perspective. So it wasn't as much of a change to be like on all the time necessarily, but it changed the way that I wanted to behave, the way that I wanted to do things, and how things could be packaged to better meet people, where they are. I don't think that I had any kind of an understanding of the way that the public respond to food until that spot. And that helped
It
me when
makes
I
you
got
it
into
makes you
management.
appreciate it.
Right. And
It
that
makes
helped
you
me so
appreciate it.
much when, I move on from there, once everything happens with the pandemic and I'm kind of left like figuring out what to do. And I end up with that restaurant called Nada that I was working for when we went into the competition, end up being an executive chef at that restaurant. And
Nice.
thank God for the experience I had at Bastion because now I'm able to go out and walk around and drop food and actually talk to people and get feedback on food and then take
Yep.
that extra step of like, okay, we really want to blow this person away. This is like the identity of who we are as a restaurant is that same like catering to people. And so it was just this perfect storm of like, I left one place super inspired to be able to do that. And I ended up in a position at a restaurant where that is like their driving force was that mentality. And so I got to do some
Wow.
really cool stuff with them and, that
How
just
old were
some
you? You're 24, executive chef at 24?
24 was when I got the job for as executive chef at Nada in Columbus. And that was how I ended up in
Amazing.
Ohio during the filming. My wife and I have lived in Murfreesboro or Nashville area, same as Alex, for for years, but I ended up in Ohio because the company wanted to promote me but didn't have the promotion available in the Nashville area.
Got it.
So we go to
Got it.
Ohio, I get the opportunity and got to turn that restaurant around it took us about 11 months and turned that restaurant around. It had one of the best teams I've ever worked for. Um, just it was that experience of like going out there having my first executive chef job mixed with that storm of like I can finally do all of the things that I've wanted to do when I haven't been in management. I can treat the staff that I want the way that I want to. And, I learned
Yeah.
so much about how I didn't want to do things from people that I worked for. And I mean, I think that everybody has that experience where it's like, for better or worse, you learn a lot about how you don't want to do things just as much as how you do want to do things.
Correct.
And so after all these years of like seeing little things, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna say yes, chef. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna say yes, chef, and do it. But when I am in
Yeah.
management, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to do things that way. And so it was just this awesome, perfect timing of like I have the opportunity to be in management and have so much freedom within that while also being able to cater to the guests as well as the staff. And that was like it was just one of the coolest things to happen. And just so happened to happen the same year that we went into Hell's Kitchen too. So it was just
Look
that
at
was such
that.
a wild year last year,
Look
man.
how it works. It was a crazy, crazy year. But for me, what I'm curious, and I'm sure a lot of people listening are curious, is like, you're doing all these amazing things. You're an executive chef at 24, and then you go on to Hell's Kitchen, which is something we'll talk about a little bit later, which is its own
Yeah.
animal, right? But where does this passion, where does this love for cooking come for Brett? Like, did it start out young, early? Like, did you want to be a basketball player or something before? Like, was this
Well,
always what you wanted to do? Like, talk to us about that.
well, I don't come from the best area. It's also definitely not the worst area. But growing up, I always kind of had this feeling looking around at people that were, in my life or people that were older than me or my age, and it just seemed like everybody was trapped. It's like I was looking at kids when I was in like elementary school and saying like, okay, well, how many of us are gonna still be in the same town? And so I don't know how I got that feeling in me as a kid, that like feeling of, um, I have to do something because like nobody ever leaves this town. It's a very small town, and I just kind of instilled this feeling that like I was gonna have to work really hard at something, I guess, and didn't
Mm-hmm.
really know what it was until, I mean, it was before I was 10 years old. I knew I wanted to be a chef. I didn't know what it meant. But, I was asking for a griddle for Christmas or a spice rack or,
Love it.
waffle iron, something silly. And that's kind of how it started. And I was, just it started with that feeling of like I'm gonna have to do something to get my way out of here and build a life for myself, and I want to do cool things and interesting things and travel, and I want to do something that I love also. And so then cooking came in and I was like, that sounds like it'll work. I didn't really know, but I was fortunate enough to have a culinary program as part of my high school where we were leaving for half of the day and we were getting into a kitchen. It was like a little vocational school, and that was kind of where I met the first of my now many culinary mentors who have really taken me under their wing and shown me the way of things. And shout out to Chef Clint Smith at Central Nine Career Academy. I mean, that guy really, he gave me Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. He kind of, shined
Nice.
the light on like the path of like a true cook, even like not even chef, just like, instilled that you have to, you're only as good as your last plate of food, and nobody cares about anything. You
Very
show up to
true.
work and you don't call in, and like, there were a lot of kids in that class who did not care about cooking. I would say 95% of the kids in that class were just there because they didn't want to be in regular school and were probably never
Yep.
going to cook outside of the class.
Yep.
But he saw that I had a real excitement and invested in that. Um, and Yeah, I mean,
Sometimes.
it kind of took off from there. Once I realized that, once I learned that it was perfect for me, and I had already known that I wanted to do it, but it was like once I learned that it was literally perfect for who I am and what I wanted to do, that's when things really took off. And luckily for me, I decided I wanted to do it when I was 10, and I started doing it when I was like 15
Wow.
years old, and I've never stopped. And so I
Let's
just I just got
go.
lucky, but it just
I
happened to be the
love it.
perfect fit for me, man.
sometimes people see things in us before we see them in ourselves. And I think that's an example of that. You know what I mean? Someone seeing that. And because for me, even when I was cooking, I was doing it in high school. And, I didn't know that this was what I was going to do until like my teacher came and because I was just taking it for easy A,
Right.
just to be frank. But then the teacher came and she was like, you have a natural knack for this. Like, do you cook at home? And started asking me all these questions and things. And then she recommended me for advanced foods and off to the races we went, went to
Right.
college, etc. and on and on. So sometimes it takes people to see things in us and it's a really beautiful moment. So talk to us about this pink hair, brother.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
you make it to the show. Did you have the pink hair when you got interviewed? Is that why they
So
chose you? Like, talk to us a little bit about
the
that.
timing of the pink hair is something that is
It's iconic, by the
it,
way.
it is iconic. It is iconic. So the story is, and this is just truly what happened. We were in the kind of end process. Um, we were in the ending process of the like interview. Like we were about to find out if we were going to make it on the show or not, but we had no idea. Ashley and I were, still pretty convinced it was a scam or whatever. Um, and she's like, she just is putting highlights in her hair. She used to be a hairstylist. She was a hairstylist when we met. She still likes to do her own hair. And so she was putting like little pink highlights in her hair. And I was like, let's freaking dye my head, like my whole head pink. Like I've never done anything weird with my hair. I was like, let's just fucking dye my hair pink. Like, let's go. And she's like, are you sure you want to do that? I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, what if you end up on the show? I was like, do we really think I'm going to end up on the show? Like, are we really going to plan and live our lives like I'm going to end up on Hell's Kitchen? Or should we just, do this thing? And so we dyed my whole head pink. It was a whole process. I had no idea what women or people that get their hair dyed go through to get their hair done. Like it was bleached a couple of times. I had to put a toner in it, had to put the pink in it a couple of times. It was burning my scalp. So, I have more respect to anybody that gets their hair done like that. I didn't know. I thought it was just a fun, relaxing time. It was painful and stressful. But so we end
That's a
up with the,
positive note. That's a
yeah,
positive thing. You get to learn from that.
yeah,
I like
I
that.
have more respect for it. I'm like, oh, you're going to get your hair done. I'm like, oh my gosh, good luck. Godspeed. I'll be praying for you.
Oh
But
my
anyway,
God,
so
man.
end up get the highlighter pink, strawberry shortcake hair, whatever we want to call it. And I've got it cut at that time about like this is. So I have like a pink mullet, dude. And
Yeah, you do.
get the call maybe a couple of weeks later that I'm gonna be on, and I'm like, holy shit. Uh, I'm
Let's
like,
go.
is it okay that my hair's pink now? Is that gonna be a problem? They were like, oh no, that's just fine. Basically, was the
That's
response. Like,
perfect.
oh yeah, you're good. We don't mind that at all. Good for you. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And
Incredible, brother.
figured if I was going to do it, figured if I was going to have the pink hair, the mullet needed to go. I couldn't go in with the pink hair and a mullet. Thought that might be a little over the top. So last minute, cut it into a normal haircut and got shipped off to Burbank. And the rest, I guess, is history, dude.
The rest is history, man. And then the world meets Brett,
Yeah.
the pink hair Brett, man. Talk to us about your experience on Hell's Kitchen, man. Like how did you see it? Because I know what I went through personally, and obviously with the crew and stuff. Like a great time, ups, downs, amazing. What did you go through? Like what was some of the things that we didn't see that was edited out? Maybe that you were thinking about. Like how was your experience?
I think the whole thing was just such a like from the time we got there, my mentality was just like I'm so grateful for this experience. And that I think so much shadowed over everything else. Like even the competition itself, like I was more just happy to be there and so grateful for the experience. Like I was obviously trying my best, but no matter what happened, I was just like, this is so fucking cool. And
Love it.
I had no idea what to expect going into it. I am very, very much a small town kid. Haven't done a lot of crazy things. I've traveled a bit and gotten to go on some road trips, but just nothing to that extent of like, oh, okay, we're meeting Tony Hawk today and Gene Simmons tomorrow, and this and that, and oh, we're gonna go, we're gonna go kart racing here and meet this person, and it's just you know that was
Wild.
so overwhelming of like I have never lived like this. This has never been what I've done. So like, I think the biggest thing for the competition and maybe like, my experience was just I was just so grateful and just so excited and having so much fun that I kind of like it kind of felt less like a competition. Like, I don't know how to explain that, but
Oh, I
It
get
didn't
it.
feel like we were all going against each other. It just,
You were just happy to be there. You
yeah,
know,
right.
you were like, man, like
This is the
we're in Hell's Kitchen. Like
right.
what? Like what
And
is
so
there
I
to be mad about? What is there to be upset about? What is there to be
right.
whatever?
And the
Like it's
crew was
just
so incredible, and all of the
yep.
whether it was the storyboard producers that we did the confessionals with, or our set PAs and Jake the driver. I mean, he was like an honorary member of
Jake.
HK as far as I'm concerned. Shout
Shout
out to
out
Jake
Jake,
DeRusso.
man. Let's go. Man, I
Um,
love it.
but so just
You had some highlights as well, Brett.
oh
Talk
yeah,
to us a little bit about talk to you had a lot of highlights, excuse me,
oh yeah,
including
we
your
had some
hair, including your hair. But
exactly.
talk, talk to us a little bit about your smash burger because for me that stood out.
Well,
That
yeah.
smash
So
burger was a killer.
there was a lot of pressure on that one, and I did a few things that were, you could have probably looked at the plate of food and said like, "Oh, this guy worked at Husk." Like if you knew Husk's food, you look at that, you're like, "All right, this guy is making some Husk food." I did a version of the wings we used to do there, and I did the smash burger is like a piece of Husk's identity.
Wow.
And so as soon as we get that burger challenge and we find out one person's got to go solo, I was like, I kind of felt like I had to do it. I was like, I'll go solo on the burger. Like, I can do this. We're going straight smash burger. Like, I've got this in the bag.
You were
And kind
so
of just like,
confident. You were
I kind of
so
just like went
confident.
into it like I said it before I thought about it. I was like, I'll do smash burger. I got it solo. This that. Like, we're done. Let's not talk about it anymore. And
I
then
remember.
as we're about to start cooking, I'm like, all right, I can better not fuck this up. Like now all of a sudden I feel the pressure. Like I should have felt
Yeah,
it 5 minutes ago when we were talking about it and I was all confident. But I was like, I really got to back this shit up.
I
Um,
love it.
and so, yeah, so that was like, I mean, we couldn't have set me up any better for that. With the ingredient list, I had absolutely no piece of food on my tray that I was like, how is this going to work on a burger? It was creme fraiche, tomato, American cheese, black truffle. Like, come on.
It was just,
Uh,
yep,
and so I was like, I just got to
match
knock
made
this
in
out of the
heaven.
park and kind of disassociated for the better part of 45 minutes and just kind of did what I know and pulled it off. And standing there waiting for that, I was like, I know I killed this, but you never know anything. And it wasn't until they turned that paddle around that like every bit of anxiety washed away, and then it was just total like frat bro party on the blue side, like because that was our first challenge as the boys, so it was like all my anxiety's gone and like
Let's
the
go.
boys just won this shit, let's go. Just
You
like
killed it,
freaking out.
man.
So that was, I mean, that was definitely one of the peaks of the competition. Was like, all right, we're coming onto this new team, and I get to kind of like prove myself in this opportunity where like I had to, my back's against the wall, and I want to prove myself, and I
And you did it.
continue to like try to keep that mentality of like I want to put myself in the most difficult position and still pull it off. That's like I want to be that guy. I want to jump after the challenging thing and and
Yep.
and pull it off, and that always didn't work out in my favor.
I love it though. I love it, man. You smashed it. You see what I did there? You smashed it.
Thank you. Yeah, that
Uh,
was that was a good day for sure. I'll never forget.
it was a great day. And one day that I won't forget is people think we have a little beef, Brett. People think
Well, I see, you know,
so
I'll,
my mom, she was like what? And I get phone call. I'm getting phone calls. I'm getting text messages all about Brett, and I'm like, I love Brett. You know what I mean? It's a very intense, high intense environment,
yeah,
and those confessionals always go in different directions. You never know. For people that are listening and watching, there's so many things that are edited out and
the
just
timeline's a little tricky. The timeline's a little
you
tricky.
never know when it was. It might the way that it comes out isn't always the way it seems.
Yeah.
But are we cool, Brett? Is there love? Because I love you,
Very
Brett.
cool, Sakari. Look, I love
Come
you, man.
on,
I fucking love you, brother. Here's what happened
love you back.
was you did better on charity night than me. I go home. They invite me back 2 days later to start. Oh, let's start talking about the competition. So I'm like, man,
I
fuck Sakari, dude. That guy's fucking
love it.
dude. Sakari sucks, man. Like,
I love it.
and like I'm going back. I
So
went
funny.
back. I talked some smack about everybody. Like almost every time I was talking smack, aside from a couple of points, that was all after I got eliminated. And I was just like, man, what do you want to ask me? I was like talking to the storyboard producer. I'm like, man, who do you want to talk about? Who do you want to talk
I
about?
love it. I
I
love
was
it,
like,
man. No,
that's when
it's all fun and games. It's all
that's
fun
when
and games.
the
What
Zeus
happened?
thing came about when I was
Yep.
like, oh, a few crazies slipped in like episode 1. I got a full beard in that. My hair is different. Like that was like
Oh wow,
last week.
that's an iconic moment right there. I remember
Right,
that
right.
little
Yeah, and that was
that
me
comment.
like, all right, this guy's crazy. And so I don't know, it's just
Man,
funny stuff like that. Like I did get a real kick out of talking shit in the moment because we were all still cool. Like I came back 2 days later after I said that, we all hang out, everything's good again. But that confessional, they get me, in that sweet spot where I haven't seen you since I left.
I
You
love
guys
it.
sent me home. I'm like, man, Sakari
F
can't cook,
everybody.
Alex
Yeah,
can't cook, Daphne
let's
can't cook.
go. I love it, man. It's so fun, man.
But
Um,
I mean everybody in that crew, man. Like, all 18 of us I got love for, and you know
100%.
some of us got really tight. I think that our room in the dorms, like me, you, Alejandro, and Vlad, like that room was like such a bond from the beginning.
A
And it
man
wasn't
cave.
until I went over to the red team and y'all had to move your beds into the other room
Right.
that we got split up. And that was all that was how the room got split up. It wasn't by somebody going home. It was because
Yeah,
of
because we were all together. We were like, we're gonna
yeah,
make it.
we were all
We're
still there past
be
that, but we
together.
got split up. Like that room was tight, from the
100%, brother.
beginning. And so that was just a
Such
huge
good
bond.
times, man. Such good. I remember waking up, man, and just looking over, like, who's sleeping, who's up, like,
I was
such
always
good
sleeping. I
times,
was
man.
never up. If they weren't calling us into the kitchen, dude, I was out.
I love it, man. So talk
So
to
fun.
us before we get out of here. I definitely want to see the tea. Show
Oh
us a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit
Yeah.
of the
Here,
tea.
let me. I didn't want to be rude and step off.
Oh no, no worries. This is when a commercial would come in, everybody. Commercial and scene.
Cat, I got a new cat this week.
We love
Wreaking
that.
havoc on the house. You got any pets, Sakari?
I do not have any pets. Uh, I love pets, but I don't have any pets. I
Okay.
used to have a goldfish though. I used to have a parrot,
Oh, a
and
parrot and a goldfish. That's an unlikely pair.
yeah, right. Little fun times. In the meantime, shout out Hexclad. Go to hexclad.com, get
Heck
some
yeah.
pans, and Brett is back. Pew pew pew
Here
pew.
I am.
All right, Brett.
I'm
Before
waiting for that kettle to warm up, but I'll see if I can.
no worries.
I'll see if I can actually show you this tea. Let me see here.
So Brett, while you're doing the tea, I love it.
I don't know if you can
Thank you
see
for
that
showing us
very
some
well.
tea, man. I can't wait to get some tea. Before we get out of here, Brett, couple things. Tell me your biggest takeaway, your biggest lesson from House Kitchen. Let's go.
Biggest takeaway for me, hands down, was how much learning I still have to do in this industry. I was very humble
We all
still
do.
when I went into that competition. Definitely was not. I've never been like a very egotistical person, but I was like, I'm pretty good. Like I'm feeling pretty good. I started to, maybe get a little overconfident about my abilities, and that competition, that experience, definitely, in a good way, knocked me down a peg or two. And I was like, kind of was forced to take the step back of like, oh my God, I still am I'm still so young and so new to the game that like it just lit this passion on, like, just lit a fire under my ass of like, bro, you still have so much to learn. And I've been extremely grateful for that. And since then, I've actually stepped away from my position as executive chef at Nada, and just kind of back to the learning grind. I got the coffee shop job that I'm working full time, and then I also have a full time night job in a kitchen working with a buddy of mine. And I don't think that without Hell's Kitchen, I would have been able to take that step down and say like, I don't need to be an executive chef at 25 years old. I can still just I can just be a cook at this place and this place and learn at this spot, and so grateful for that, because those things and those experiences and what I've done has made me so much more excited about food again too. So just
I love
biggest
that. It's a
takeaway for
blessing.
sure was how much yeah, absolutely. And I'm still so thankful for that. And, Gordon told me on a couple of occasions, like, you're a very talented cook, like, but why are you an executive chef right now? And when somebody like Gordon Ramsay is going to say that to you, you're crazy if you don't think about it at least a little bit and say like, why am I and why did I do this? And at the time, I made the decision to go into management because I wanted to better support my family, because there's not that much money to be made in the restaurant industry. And so it's like you kind of have to sacrifice what you want to do if you want to make a little bit more money. Um, but just really took a good look at things and said, like, why am I doing this? Do I have to do this? And would I be happier doing something else even if I was making less money? And that isn't what I ended up doing. It was like, I'm going to have to take a pay cut, but I want to go back to, learning as much as I can every day and,
I love it.
rediscovering that passion. I'm going to grab that
The
kettle real
roots,
quick.
the roots of it, Brett. For me, where my mind goes is that it's not taking a step down. It's just having a different perspective, right? Like Hell's Kitchen and these opportunities that we have, they open our eyes to so many different things, so many different people, so many different experiences, and it makes us appreciate life and the value of really what's important to each person, whether that's a job, whether that's someone's wife, whether that's a family, and so on and so forth. So for me, man, that makes me happy that you're on the path to, well, we're all on to the path of just finding happiness, And I went through something similar where, people are like, Sakari, what are you doing? You're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing this. But for me, it's finding what I love, which is food and cooking and, everything around food. So I'm so happy for you, Brett, on this journey, and just know that you have a friend here, always and forever, brother. We've shared something that most people don't share in their lifetime. So I'm always here to support you, man. And I can't wait to see the amazing things that you do in this industry, in your career, in life. Period. You know what I mean? So I'm super excited, man. I hope you enjoy the tea, man. Thank you so much. There we go. There's the cheers.
Beautiful.
Look at that. Beautiful. Look at that. Thank you so much for joining us. Another episode of Sipping with Sakari. Where can they find you, Brett, before we get out of here?
That's an interesting question. You can find me on Instagram at Breticus27.
How do you spell that? What is that? Talk to us.
Bretticus 27. You'll see the pink hair, little cartoon drawing. Shout out to my buddy
Amazing.
Colin. Beautiful
Let's
piece of
go.
artwork. One of my favorite, personally made pieces of art.
Let's go.
But yeah, outside of that, I mean, hopefully I end up getting into a little bit of, I want to be able to promote cool things about food and beverage. I'm working right now on trying to get some more content as far as those things go. I work with some really cool stuff at both of my jobs and make some really cool stuff at both of them and use really exciting products. And so hopefully, I'll be putting some more of that on my social media. I've done a few videos on some teas, but outside of that,
Can't
you catch
wait.
me working somewhere in Nashville any day of the week, baby. Today's my
There
second
it
day
is.
off in 2 months. So I'm
Woo!
always somewhere.
And I'm honored and humbled that you chose your time to come spend it with us
I wouldn't be
here.
where I
So
would be, buddy.
thank you so much, Brett, man. Can't wait. And you can catch us both on this season of Hell's Kitchen on Hulu. Thank you, Brett, man. It's been truly an honor. And take care, brother.
Yeah, buddy. Thank you so much for having me. Seriously.
Thank you so much for being here.
Have a good one.
Love.
Sipping with Sakari.